Hello, everybody, and welcome to Dubs, the Angry Black Conservative. I am your host, Dubs. I am sorry I've been away for so long. I had to have some dental surgery, and frankly, I couldn't really speak all that well for the last 2 weeks. I hope everyone is really fine. I hope everyone has enjoyed their July 4th Independence Day. And yes, I'll say it again, Independence Day celebration. I hope you are not at an Indigenous Peoples celebration because we really don't know who to consider the Indigenous people. And we can argue about that, but frankly, Native Americans came over the land bridge from, Europe and through Europe from Africa. So we're all Africans, and remember that. I've said that before in a previous post, and I mean that. I consider us all to be Africans. Everything else is environmental adaptation. Everything else is time that changed our physicality and blah, blah, blah to match whatever environments our ancestors decided to sit down in the longest. So when you start saying indigenous people, I don't know who that means. You had Native American tribes fighting over land for, thousands of years on this particular continent. So we can have a good argument about it, and I'm totally open to it. But we celebrate Independence Day on July 4th. And that's what I celebrated, and I had a great time, and I hope you did too. I want to give a warning out to anyone who does not believe that there are bad people in the world. If you are one of those people, then I highly recommend turning this off because you're going to get offended. For the rest of us who live in the real world, there are bad people in the world, and we know it. And we need to be able to identify those people, and we need to be able to protect ourselves from those people. You can protect yourself in a lot of ways. I am a huge advocate in everyone studying the martial arts. I've been studying Kung Fu for years. For those of you who are interested in Kung Fu, I study Hung Ga, which is tiger style. And I also study the Lumbic form of Wing Chun. And it has made me the man I am today. And I am of the opinion that without Kung Fu, I would either be in jail or dead someplace. So I highly recommend the martial arts. And in martial arts, the best form of self-defense is to turn 180 degrees and sprint. That's your best form. However, if you're met with a situation where you can't turn 180 degrees and sprint, and you got to stand there and fight, then you have to be able to stand there and fight. Or, the greatest equalizer in the world, having a gun. Which leads me to this. I'm going to read the Second Amendment, and I'm going to take it apart as I read it, and then I'm going to read it again just so that we have a clear understanding of what it is without me tearing it apart. So, the Second Amendment of the Constitution of the United States reads, a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state is capitalized, the right of the people to keep and bear arms, interestingly enough, arms, capitalized, shall not be infringed. I'm going to read it again without all the pausing. A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I'm going to read that last part again because it's my favorite part. Shall not be infringed. So here's the argument. If you had a person who was your next door neighbor and they wanted to buy a tank, would that be okay? Well, frankly, for me, the answer is yes. If that person is following the law, if that person is handling that equipment safely, I'm totally cool with it. Because if he's handling it safely, he's not going to hurt me. And the only way he could hurt me, if he's following the law and he's respecting my rights, is if I attack him. And if I attack him, he has the right to defend himself. And if that means he shoots me with his tank, totally cool with it. And I know that he'll never hurt me with that tank because I'm never going to attack him. And that's all there is to it. If you want to talk about the assault rifles and all this other stuff, I want to just stop you right there. There is no such thing as an assault rifle. There are rifles that physically look like they're scary, and there are rifles that physically look like they are not scary. And that seems to be what an assault rifle is. If it looks scary, oh, it's an assault rifle. I would highly recommend that everyone go to the range and shoot a variety of weapons so that they have a better understanding of them before they start talking about them. People worry about the AR-15. I got news for you. You get a 30-06. A 30-06 will do more damage than an AR-15 ever will. An AR-15 is a 22 caliber bullet. It's small. The only thing is about the AR-15 is that it's easily used, and that's why a lot of people get them. It's a very easy weapon to use. A lot of the people who buy AR-15s are women, statistically speaking, and the ones who use them, obviously. Because since it is such an easy weapon to use and it doesn't have that recoil that's in those heavy caliber weapons, a person who's got a lighter build and a lighter structure can control that weapon a lot better. And if you have a weapon, it's all about controlling that weapon. So, but let's get back to the shall not be infringed part. So, all of my weapons have the proper safety on them. You don't have to worry about my weapons coming out of the locker and loading themselves and running down the stairs and running into the street and shooting people, because weapons don't do that. Weapons are tools, and like any tool, the way you use them, you've heard me say this before. What I want to go into is self-defense. And the reason why I want to talk to you about that today is because as I'm reading news reports, as I'm watching the TV, and I watch them all, I'm seeing more and more that the average person is not allowed to defend themselves, and that you are only allowed to use violence if you are of a certain political bent. And that's not the way it's supposed to work. We're all supposed to have equal protection under the law. And I'm serious when I say that. We are all supposed to have equal protection under the law. Once you start catering the law to benefit a certain ideology, you're running a really dangerous game at that point. I would encourage you to read the self-defense laws of your state and of your local municipality. So I'm going to go into mine, and I don't know if I've said it before, but I do live in New Jersey. Don't laugh at me. I'm going to be hopping out of New Jersey as soon as I can, because you cannot retire in New Jersey unless you are a millionaire. If you're an average person, to try to retire in New Jersey is sheer folly. The taxes are through the roof. The laws are terrible, and it's a beautiful state, and I wish I could stay here. But because of the way it's run, I can't. I got to get out of here. So in New Jersey, however, self-defense, you got to have a couple things. So first thing is that force used must be immediate and necessary. That's your first rule when it comes to self-defense in New Jersey. I'm going to say it again. Force used must be immediate and necessary. I'm totally fine with it. Totally fine with that one. Immediate, I agree with it 100%. You can't be threatened by somebody, wait 4 months, and then walk into their house and hit them on the head with a baseball bat and say, well, you threatened me 4 months ago, so now I'm taking care of it. The threat is gone at that point. That's just not right. You have an opportunity at that point to get law enforcement involved, or to seek an attorney or whatever. But you have the ability at that point to go ahead and handle matters in a much more civil way. So it's got to be immediate, and I agree with that completely. The one that gets me a little confused is necessary. And the reason why necessary gets me confused is because there is no definition by the state when it comes to that word necessary. So, effectively, what I think is necessary, the state, and in this case, the state being the courts, they may disagree with me on my definition of necessary for that particular situation. So, if you're somebody who, let's say, is trained in martial arts, and I am trained in martial arts, I've been studying Kung Fu for years. If you're interested, I'll just tell you what I study. I study the Lumbic form of Wing Chun, and I study Hung Gar, which is for the average person, Tiger style. I love the martial arts. If it were up to me, every little girl would train in martial arts from the age of 5 to the age of 10. And then after 10, they would be able to make their own decision on whether or not they want to continue their training. But I would have them train for 5 years because there are some bad people in this world. And the ability to defend yourself is really, really important. When you're a kid, you are not afraid of things. And so training with kids is always a fantastic thing. It stays with them. They'll keep those fundamentals. And not only that, but just the discipline involved of it will keep them going for the rest of their lives. That confidence that it builds, the idea of yesterday I couldn't do this and today I can do this. It's just tremendous. But in any case, the necessary thing. If you're not in line with what the state deems as necessary, you run into a problem. And because the necessary is not in the code, it makes that very, very difficult to really abide by with any kind of assurity or any kind of certainty. And I think that that's one of the reasons why self-defense has got to be taken on a case-by-case basis. And you've got to really put together a lot of information. You've got to be somebody who's completely unbiased. I mean, you have those cases that are, cut and dry. A guy is running at you with a machete saying he's going to kill you, and there's blood dripping from the machete from the 12 people he's already killed. Well, there's no argument at that point. But really what it comes down to is those one-on-one situations, normally involving a man who's assaulting a woman, and the woman kills him. Well, was it necessary to kill him? Well, frankly, for me, if a man is putting his hands on a woman, I think if she ends up killing him, then it's his too bad. But that necessary thing is really, really important. It's a sticking point for me. Second, force used against the defendant must be lawful. I'll say it again. Force used against the defendant must be lawful. Well, does that mean that if my wife, who does not have a permit for a firearm, uses one of my firearms to defend herself and my children, will that be one of those situations where she gets tied up in court and can be found guilty of illegal use of a firearm? Or could she be, in the event that she kills a person, could she be brought up on charges of manslaughter or murder or any of those other lovely terms? It's very, very disturbing. And because the law has not been really well defined, again, it's a case of what do we think? And I don't want my wife in that moment, if God forbid that situation ever happens, to worry about being locked up because she didn't have a permit to use that firearm. It's something that's really concerning to me. And when I say this, I don't mean like while she's in the house or something like that. I mean, we're outside and we're in the backyard and so on and so on, and something happens and she runs into the house, grabs a firearm, and runs back out of the house to defend herself and our children and stuff. It really is a concern of mine, and I want that stuff defined. But just wanted to let you know about that one. Now, what about shooting an intruder in New Jersey? Well, you can only do that if the intruder continues to threaten you after being warned. That's the way it reads. So you have to give a warning. At this point, I'm a little upset. I don't want to give them a warning. I do not want the bad guy to know that I can attack him in kind. I want the bad guy to be completely unprepared for whatever we are about to do to them. Because when you prepare, well, now he can counterattack. Or maybe he attacks me first. For instance, I hear whatever happening in my home. I decide to grab my shotgun and I stand in the hallway and I hear them coming up the stairs to the hallway. And there's three of them, and I can tell that they're armed because I either saw them or I can hear them jacking back a slide or, pumping a shell into the chamber of their shotgun or whatever. I don't want to give them the warning. I don't want to say, hey, Mr. Criminal, I have a weapon as well. If you continue up the stairs, I'm going to shoot you. No, I want them to come up the stairs, be completely relaxed because they've broken into the house successfully and everyone is sleeping. And now they can do whatever they want to do. No, I want them just like that. That's the mindset I want them in. Because when I start shooting, I want to get all three of them. I don't want to hit one and the other two run away because they may come back to hurt me or my family. I want to get them all. And if that means me shooting them and cutting them in half with a shotgun blast, I'm totally cool with it. Because I have no idea what you came into my house to do, nor do I care. That's not relevant to the situation. And what I mean is that if they came in and here's your argument, and I've people have thrown this at me before, they'll hit me with well, what if they were just there to steal the TV? Well, the problem with that is that I don't have the luxury to ask them. I can't say, excuse me, guys, you're in my house without my permission. It's 2:00 in the morning. You're being as quiet as possible, and you have weapons. Are you here just to steal the TV, or are you here to hurt my family? Because that's essentially what that does. I don't have time for that. Nor does anyone else in that situation. What you have to do in that situation is that you have to say to yourself, there is a threat to my family's lives. There's a threat to my life. I have to take care of that threat. And the easiest way to take care of the threat is to put them down so that they don't get back up. And if that means, unfortunately, they die, oh well. Shouldn't have been in my house. And you may say that's a harsh way of looking at things, but I'm going to tell you right now, if I were in that situation, I had one of my kids ask me one day, would I really shoot somebody and possibly kill them to defend her? And I said, I would do it. And as soon as I got done doing it, I would order a cheesesteak and a bottle of 7-Up, and I wouldn't think twice about them. Because you're not going to hurt my family. That's my job in this world, is to protect my family. Make sure my family is okay. And there's no way I'm going to let them be hurt. So that's that. So now the second part is that if you have a reasonable belief that you or others in the home are in clear and imminent danger, then I can use deadly force or self-defense. Again, that reasonable belief. Who is to determine what that reasonable belief is? Frankly, to me, the only person who's able to make that decision is the person who's in that situation. And again, going with the example that I was using, that would be me. There's no way that I can give anybody else reasonable belief in a situation if I'm not in that situation. I'm a big guy. My reasonable belief is completely based on me being a big old dude who's trained in the martial arts, who is trained in weapons, who has had to use their martial arts to defend themselves on several occasions. I have a different way of looking at the world than, let's say, and I'll be the sexist right now, than a woman who weighs 105 pounds or a woman who weighs 115 pounds who's never had any kind of combat training. Reasonable belief for the two of us is completely different. And if you think that that is an unacceptable way of looking at it, then I would have to say to you that you are a fool. Reasonable belief is based on that individual's view of the world at that moment. And that's all there is to it. And the easiest way for a woman to defend herself, because a woman is naturally, meaning nature, shorter than the average man. They are weaker than the average man. And when you're talking about a physical conflict, those two things matter. You have two fighters that are of equal skill, then the bigger and stronger one is going to win. That's all there is to it. That is all there is to it. So, these are things that I worry about, and these are things that I wanted to talk about. Now, let's go to the case in with Mark and Patricia McCloskey, the St. Louis couple. I'm sure you've heard about them. There's a couple things I want to go through with this. It's really disturbing what happened to them. It's really disturbing what has happened to them since this situation. And when I think about the future of what could potentially happen to these people, I'm very concerned. And you may say, well, Tom, it's only one couple. Well, it's not. Those are two regular people. And what has happened with them could happen easily with any one of us. So here's the case of events. In case you don't know, they live in a gated community. No one's arguing about that. There is a wrought iron gate that allows you to come into their community, and where their property is, they're right where the gate is. You can Google the area, and I think that Tim Pool did an awesome job of illustrating that using Google to analyze their surroundings and stuff. The argument is, did the group of protesters, if you will, and by the way, I just want to say this very, very clearly, you're a protester until you break the law. Once you break the law, you are no longer protesting. To me, you are a mob, you are rioters, you are looters, and any of those other wonderful adjectives that we use to describe those people. If you say to me that, well, what about the sit-in people? They're protesting. You're absolutely correct. But what they did is that's the civil disobedience. They're not damaging anything. They're not destroying anything. They're not putting themselves or anyone else at risk. If you sit down in the middle of a courthouse and say you're not moving because you are protesting, My Little Pony, then you're not damaging anyone. Now they can then arrest you because you are now in violation of whatever's going on that property. But you're not endangering anyone, nor does anyone feel endangered by your actions. You're just a nuisance. Totally cool with it. Those people were not that. Those people broke a gate to get into where they were getting. They're chanting what they're chanting. They are walking by this man's house while he's outside with his wife having dinner. And they say that they are going to kill him. They're going to kill his wife. My favorite of all these things is they actually say to the guy they're going to kill his dog and they're going to burn down his home. Well, let's think about this now. Have rioters, especially in St. Louis, have they done things where they've damaged property and attacked people? The answer is yes. And if you've ever seen a mob start hitting somebody, if there's 15 dudes in the mob, all 15 people want to get in their one hit. You get hit 15 times in the head, you're dead. There's a reasonable belief, and I'm going to use the New Jersey regulations, even though we're talking about St. Louis, but that's reasonable. There's a reasonable thought process in this man's head that these people are actually going to kill him. They're going to kill his wife. They're going to kill his dog. They're going to burn his home down. And in that situation, if you did have a firearm, you would go and you would grab your firearm to defend yourself and your wife and your dog and your home. That's all there is to it. It's the whole purpose of having the firearm, so you can defend yourself. That's one of the reasons why the Second Amendment is there, so you can defend your life. Shall not be infringed. He runs in the house, he gives his wife his pistol, he gets his rifle, and he starts telling them, move on, move on. So now you have the argument of whether or not he was holding it correctly. Well, he was at rest. And any of us who's over the age of 40, where we used to have the green army men, we all had the green plastic army men who were just standing there with a rifle that was being held like that. You know, if you haven't been to weapons training like myself and a lot of other people, where your rifle, your weapon is either up, or it's down, or it's in its holster, he wasn't pointing it at any of them. The weapon was pointing at people because they were walking by his house. But at no point on the videos that I've seen did you see him put that weapon in any way, shape, or form aimed at any individual specifically. The wife is holding the pistol. It's in her dominant hand. So when she is pointing and yelling at these people to keep going on, the pistol is pointing along with her. Did she actually take a stance and level that weapon in any specific person's direction and aim it? The answer is no. So did they have proper gun etiquette? The answer is no. But were they actually pointing the weapon, saying that they were going to kill somebody? The answer is no. It's just that simple. All right? So, you have that. The rioters, or the group, whatever you want to call them, whatever way it makes you happy, I'll just call them the mob. The mob decides that these are people that they're not going to mess with, and so they keep on walking. So this guy has now successfully defended himself, defended his wife, defended his dog, defended his home. There's the broken gate. They're in a neighborhood that is supposed to be private, and they're breaking the law. Mr. McCloskey, or excuse me, I'm sorry, it was Mrs. McCloskey, Patricia, they called the police, and the police said that they can't help them. I don't know what else you expected from Mark and Patty. I really don't. I don't know what else you wanted them to do to make sure that their lives were protected. I don't understand where the argument comes from. Okay, so now you've got the St. Louis Circuit Attorney, Kimberly Gardner. And I want to read her quote, because looking at the facts of the case, this is what this woman said, and she is backed by George Soros, who I know I really haven't spoken about, but George Soros is a bad guy. Okay? More than 70% of this lady's campaign funds came from George Soros and Soros-backed organizations. George Soros is a bad guy. All right? And I don't care what political affiliation that you have, George Soros is a bad guy. Okay. Now, so you got Kim, and this is what she says. Make no mistake, we will not tolerate the use of force against those exercising their First Amendment rights, and will use the full power of Missouri law to hold people accountable. Well, I would expect her to do that any time a situation happens in her jurisdiction where somebody is doing that. The problem is that that's not what happened here. What happened here is that the McCloskeys were having dinner. People broke into their neighborhood and they were in front of their house and threatened their lives. And so they went and they protected themselves. And I got news for you. They did it with a lot of restraint, because they were just yelling for those people to keep on going. We're armed. Leave us alone. Get out of our neighborhood. There are many, many, many of us, one of which is me. I might have been pointing my firearm directly at somebody at that point. You just threatened to kill me? You just threatened to kill my wife? You know what? You need to stay away from my property, pal, or you're going to get this. But this is what this woman said. Now, she is there to defend her constituents. She is there to defend her people. So who are the people that she is defending? The mob? The people who threatened to kill people? The people who broke into a private community? The people who are guilty of destruction of property? Or is she defending the people who were threatened with their lives and protected themselves. This woman is a disgrace. She is an absolute disgrace. And I'm disgusted by her. So, a few days ago, Kim sends the police to the McCloskey's house. They confiscate their weapons. This is reported on national TV. Now I understand, the media is the media. This is a hot story. This is something that they want to revisit. What happened with the McCloskeys? Because the McCloskeys have made themselves more public because they've gone on TV. Cool, no problem. You've gone on TV. You've told your story because you've got Kim Gardner telling everybody in the world that you're going to be getting prosecuted. The best strategy they have is to make themselves as public as possible so that Kim can't do what she wants to do with them. She can't do it in a sneaky way. Go ahead and get public. Get as famous as you possibly can so that if something happens to you, the public will know about it. That alone should have kept Kim away. But no, she sends the police to their home and confiscates their weapons. What do you think is going to happen with that mob now? Do you think that there's a huge possibility that these people who have already threatened the McCloskeys are going to go back now and finish the job? Or do something bad, or kill the dog, or burn down the house when the McCloskeys are there, are there or are not there? I don't know. Do you? But what we do know is that the McCloskeys are now in a position where they cannot defend themselves. And since they called the police and the police said that they can't help them on the day that their lives were being threatened, well, what chance do you think they have of the police responding at that point? So now I don't have the police to protect me. And normally, let's face it, the police are not there to protect. They're there to clean up the problem after it's happened. They're there as a deterrent. But now that they can't even defend themselves. And the bad guys know that they can't defend themselves. Now what do you do if you're the McCloskeys? What do you do? Now here is the kicker. For all those people who have been saying that the McCloskeys are, white supremacists and they don't care about brown-skinned people and they, all this other stuff. And here's my favorite thing about that. You dig a little bit into the McCloskeys and you find out, first of all, they're both attorneys. You got Patricia is on the ethics review board for attorneys, which means that she's the one who goes after bad attorneys. Well, that means that she's got pretty good, I would assume, that she's got a pretty good barometer on being an honorable person. But here's my favorite thing about Mark, which I don't know if this is being talked about in a lot of the news outlets. I have not heard of it yet. But again, I'm only one person with two ears. So as much as I try to listen, I could have missed it. But there's a little tidbit about Mark. So Mark's got a client that he's had since April of 2019. So this is July of 2020. So for those of you in Rio Linden, as Rush would say, he's had this client now for over a year. So in any case, this client, it happens to be a black man. And why does this black man have Mark as his attorney? Well, he went to surrender to the police, and while he was surrendering to the police, a police officer kicked him in the head. Mark is now representing this black gentleman in a civil rights case against the police department because he was kicked in the head, which would tell me Mark does not have a problem with black people. Mark is not some sympathizer who goes along with the police. Mark is a guy who has taken a case with a black man to go against the police, which under these circumstances would mean that he's not a white supremacist and he does not have a problem with black people. So if you take any time to look this stuff up and find out some facts before you start ripping off at the mouth and grinding away, about something that you haven't got the true story of a person, this is one of those lessons. And maybe if Miss Garner, if Kimmy over there would have done a little bit of this, maybe she wouldn't be saying all the things that she's saying about this particular couple. We need to be free to protect ourselves. We need to be free to protect ourselves. This is one couple in one city, and they are very wealthy. So they have a lot of money. Their house is huge, and this is the way they are being treated. If that's the case with them, what happens when you're a poor guy and you don't really understand the law and you don't have the ability to defend yourself, or you don't have the ability to go up against the big wig in the district office, or the circuit attorney named Kimberly Gardner, who's coming after you? What if you're just some simple guy who makes 35 grand a year? You got your wife and your 3 kids. Something stupid happened. Somebody's saying something. You grab your firearm and you say, "Get away from me! Get away from my family, or I'll shoot you!" And then she comes after you. How's that guy going to defend himself against not the mob, because he successfully has done that? No, he's got to defend himself against the circuit attorney, good old Kimberly Gardner, or whomever in whatever state. What hope do we have? Second Amendment is there for a reason. You take a look at you got Chicago, you've got New York City, the Seattle, the Portland. We've all heard the stories. They're this defunding of the police officers because police officers are killing thousands of unarmed black men every year, when in fact the number is 9. 9. I'll say it again, 9. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. You know what kills men in this country? 24% of the deaths in this country, and CDC, you can go and look it up yourself. The numbers for the CDC are up to 2017. So they're a little behind. So I got to give them that. But the most recent numbers of the CDC, 24% of men across all ages, across all ethnicities and races and all other nonsense. 24% of men die from heart disease. 21.9% die from cancer. That's about 47% of the men in this country. They die from those two things, heart disease and cancer. The next thing down, 7.6%, that's the unintentional deaths. 7.6%. So the first two account for about 46, 47%. After that, you drop down to 7.6% of the men die from unintentional disease, unintentional issues. 9 black men that were unarmed killed by the police. You know how many police have been killed? Because I got those figures too. So for the year 2020. This is as of July 14th. This is off of the Law Enforcement Officers Killed and Assaulted program. This is right out of the Federal Bureau of Investigation Uniform Crime Reporting. So you don't have to take my word on it. You can look it up yourself. I'll say it again. Federal Bureau of Investigation Uniform Crime Reporting. And their thing is the LEOKA, which is the Law Enforcement Officers Killed and Assaulted program. As of 7/14 of 2020, 32 officers have been killed feloniously. That's up from 25 from last year in the same time period. Okay? 7 of those 32 were victims of ambush, meaning that people specifically trapped officers and killed them for the purpose of killing them. No accidents, no gunfights, no whatever. 7 of them killed by ambush. Okay? So that's the thing. That's what I'm talking about. 32 officers killed in 2020 alone. We're halfway through the year. 9 unarmed black men were killed last year. I don't know. I think 32 is a little bit more than 9. And I think there's a lot more black men in the world than there are police officers. I'm just saying. So if you're talking about, who's getting it and who's not, take a look at the way that the news is reporting these numbers, and you'll find that there's a bit of a bias. There's a bit of a slant towards an ideology. And, some people have been calling this ideology, they've been calling it's not really an ideology. It's become a religion. And it has all the makings of a religion. And if it's not a religion, it's wearing the uniform of a religion. We'll put it that way. And that's what's concerning to me. And the problem is that if we are not able to defend ourselves, if we are going to get arrested for defending ourselves, if we are going to have our homes raided because we lawfully have firearms for whatever reason we want them, I do not have to give you a reason as to why I want a firearm. It's frankly, and I apologize, it's none of your damn business. I could have a firearm because I like to hunt. I could have a firearm because I just like to shoot at targets. I could have a firearm in the house just because I want to protect myself. I can have a firearm in my house just because I like the way it looks and I think it looks cool. I do not have to tell you why I want a firearm. It is a right of nature for someone or an animal to defend themselves. People get on the Constitution, the rights and the government. No, the right comes from God. And if you don't want to use God, then you can say, hey, no problem. The right comes from the serpent in the sky. It's a right of nature. I have the right to live. I have a right to defend myself. I have a right to defend my family. Those rights are not something that a government gives you. That right is something that the government protects, because that is the purpose of government, to protect our rights. The government does not give us rights. If the government gives you the right, then the government can take it away. These are things that transcend government. I have a right to defend myself. I say it 9,000 times a day. And if that right is going to be attacked by a government official who is coming after me without having the facts, without understanding what type of person I am, going back to that thing that I read, we were talking about necessary. We're talking about a situation where, did I think that this was a situation that was immediate and necessary? Did I have reasonable belief? Well, you know what? If you don't have the clear understanding, or if you have a bias, then you can't properly do your job to come after me and to charge me and to prosecute me and to possibly put me in jail. And that's what Kim Gardner has the ability to do. Is she faithfully doing her job? Well, as far as the case of the McCloskeys go, the answer would be no. And if the answer is no into the case of the McCloskeys, if we start digging into this woman a lot, and I have, and I can name 4 other cases that have happened recently that she's done the exact same thing. This is a danger to us all. This is a danger to every citizen of the country. And the fact that it's not being yelled about on every single media outlet is astonishing to me. This is a danger to our country. This is a danger to every citizen in our country. You have politicians that have told people and have told the police to stand down while rioters are burning down city blocks. And the reason why they went nuts in Portland was because the rioters finally went to the mayor's house. And now Chaz is gone. Chop is gone. Because they went to her house. That's what motivated her. Once it became personal, all of a sudden it was, oh, well, we've got to do something. As long as they weren't affecting her, everything was fine. Bill de Blasio, Comrade de Blasio, as I like to call him in New York City, is telling people how safe New York City is. And he has a detail of security for himself and his family. And his family has a detail of security when they're not with him. He is safe. His detail has firearms. And he is touting how safe New York City is. Have you looked at the statistics in New York? 230% increase in people being shot. The 1-year-old that got killed, the 9-year-old that got killed, the 3-year-old that got killed, the other 1-year-old that got killed, the 4-year-old that got killed. New York is going into the dumper. And meanwhile, de Blasio is bragging about how safe the city is, how few people they have incarcerated, because he's let them all out. And when you let them all out, they started doing their thing again. And he's disbanded a 600-person team, anti-crime, anti-gang department. People are being killed. People are dying. Children are dying as a direct result of Bill de Blasio's policies. And yet, if you live in New York City, try and get a gun lawfully that you keep in your home to defend yourself and your family. I'll bet you a soda you can't do it. Same thing's happening in Chicago. You know, we can go through it all, you know, and everyone always brings up those two, but it's kind of, those are kind of easy examples. So what do you do in that situation? This is a clarion call for the people of this country that we need to make a huge change in who we vote for, because those people appoint other people and back up other people and everything else. It's getting dangerous out there. We have a right to protect ourselves. I'll say it one more time. We have a right to protect ourselves. So, I will see you guys in a little bit. I'm going to do another posting a little later on about some police stuff that I want to go through with you. Go a little bit deeper into it. But for right now, you guys have yourselves a great day. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for playing along. I appreciate it. Have a good one.